He didn't scream, he didn't cry, he didn't even try to run Dot in the middle of a packed airport. A little boy did something so small, so quiet, almost no human could have noticed it. But one pair of eyes did, and they didn't belong to a human. Rex, the police K9, suddenly froze mid-patrol. His ears shot up. His muscles tightened. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Then the child glanced up and made a tiny gesture. No bigger than a twitch of his fingers, a silent signal. In the next heartbeat, Rex exploded into action, sprinting through the crowds. Barking with a fury no one had ever heard before, everyone thought he'd gone rogue. But the truth? The boy had just begged for his life. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning rush at the international airport was in full swing, a chaotic blend of rolling suitcases, echoing announcements, and hurried footsteps that bounced off the high ceiling. Travelers weaved through each other like restless currents, some late for flights, others anxiously checking departure screens glowing overhead. In the middle of this controlled frenzy walked Officer Mark, his uniform crisp, his expression calm yet his eyes always scanning, always reading the energy of the crowd. At his side trotted Rex, the airport's most trusted German Shepherd K9, moving with disciplined precision and ears sharp to every sound. Together they formed a quiet barrier of safety in the middle of the ever-moving storm. Rex paused occasionally, nose twitching as he tested the air. Mark watched him with the subtle attention of a handler who trusted his partner's instincts more than anything else. The dog had an uncanny ability to sense things no human could fear: adrenaline, hidden intentions. Even on calm days, Rex noticed details others would overlook. Today, however, the atmosphere felt different. The waves of rushing passengers carried something else beneath them, something faint but uneasy. And Mark could sense Rex picking up on it. As they moved toward the main concourse, a small group of children laughed near a souvenir shop. A businessman argued on the phone, and a couple hugged tightly as if parting for months. It was routine airport life, the everyday emotional traffic Rex had learned to ignore unless something stood out. Suddenly he stopped mid-stride. His head lifted, ears tilting forward with laser focus. Mark followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual, just the typical crowd, a stream of strangers passing by. Still, Rex remained perfectly still, muscles tense, breathing quiet. Mark frowned slightly. "What is it, buddy?" he murmured. Rex didn't move. He wasn't just watching. He was waiting, and somewhere in the sea of rushing travelers. The reason for his sudden alertness had already stepped into the building, quiet, unnoticed, and carrying a silent cry for help no one else would hear, from the far end of the terminal. A woman in a long blue coat appeared, holding a little boy's hand as they stepped into the flow of passengers. At first glance, they looked like any other traveling pair, mother and son navigating a busy morning. But something about them made Rex's ears prick higher. The dog's gaze locked onto the boy instantly, as if the child carried a vibration in the air that only he could detect. Mark noticed it too, the sudden stiffness in Rex's posture, the way his tail lowered, the quiet breath he drew through his nose. Something wasn't right. The woman kept her head forward, her grip on the boy's hand firm enough to look protective, but a little too tight to seem gentle. She didn't glance around like most travelers did. She didn't seem flustered, distracted, or relaxed. She seemed focused, almost rehearsed. Meanwhile, the boy walked silently beside her, his shoulders slightly hunched, chin tucked toward his chest. He didn't swing his arms like children usually do, didn't look excited or curious about the bustling airport around him. Instead, his free hand remained close to his body, fidgeting nervously near the hem of his shirt. Mark observed them from a distance, subtly adjusting his pace as Rex stood motionless, watching. The dog's eyes didn't leave the boy for even a second. Passengers passed between them, but Rex's focus stayed sharp, unbroken. Mark had worked with him long enough to know this wasn't random interest. Rex didn't stare unless he sensed something. As the pair drew closer, Mark noticed a strange detail. The woman seemed to pull the boy slightly whenever he slowed, guiding him with subtle force rather than encouragement. The boy didn't resist, but he also didn't respond with the warmth or comfort children usually show to a parent. Something about their connection felt wrong and natural. And Rex felt it first. Somewhere beneath the surface of that quiet walk, a secret was unfolding. And Rex was already reading it. As the woman and the boy continued down the concourse, Rex slowly stepped forward, his instincts pulling him like an invisible thread. Mark felt the leash tighten slightly and followed his partner's lead, his brows furrowing. Rex wasn't growling, wasn't barking, he was observing with a focus so intense that Mark's pulse quickened. Whatever had caught his attention wasn't a threat in the traditional sense. It was something more delicate, something only a trained canine could detect. The boy walked with his head still lowered, his small shoes tapping quietly against the polished floor. The woman tugged his hand again, urging him to keep pace. She murmured something under her breath, too soft for anyone to hear, but the boy didn't respond. Instead, his eyes flickered sideways, glancing toward Rex without ever turning his head. It was such a small movement that no human passing by would have noticed it. But Rex did. The dog's ears lifted higher, and his head tilted the slightest bit, studying the child's posture. The boy's hand, his free hand, slowly curled inward, then extended just a fraction. His index finger bent, straightened, and brushed against his thumb in a motion so tiny it almost looked accidental. But it wasn't. Rex recognized it instantly. A subtle distress gesture. A silent plea. Mark felt Rex freeze beside him. The dog's breathing changed, a silent intensity building within his chest. Mark followed Rex's gaze again, but to him, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Children often fidgeted. But Rex wasn't fooled by normal behavior. He knew the difference between uncertainty and fear. Between discomfort and danger, the boy repeated the motion. Slightly clearer this time. His fingers trembled. His shoulders tightened. His eyes darted toward Rex once more, desperate yet cautious, as if terrified the woman beside him might notice, and Rex understood. The little boy wasn't just fidgeting. He wasn't shy. He wasn't nervous. He was asking for help, quietly, secretly, desperately. In that tiny movement, everything changed. Rex lowered his body, gaze locked, every muscle preparing for what he knew he had to do next. Rex's body stiffened so sharply that Mark felt the change through the leash, like a jolt of electricity. The German Shepherd lowered his head, eyes locked on the boy with a level of intensity Mark had only seen during high-risk operations. Before Mark could even whisper a command, Rex made his move. In one explosive burst of energy, the dog lunged forward, breaking formation, breaking protocol, breaking every rule he had been trained to obey. The leash ripped from Mark's grip. Passengers gasped. A suitcase toppled as someone jumped back. A scream echoed from somewhere behind. Rex sprinted through the terminal, his claws clicking sharply against the polished floor. The crowd parted instinctively, startled by the sudden rush of a police dog charging with unmistakable purpose. People froze mid-step, eyes widening in confusion and fear as the German Shepherd barreled past them like a streak of black and tan. Rex. "Heel!" Mark shouted, his voice echoing above the noise. But Rex didn't slow, not even for a heartbeat. The woman jerked around at the sound of the dog's rapid approach. Her eyes widened, and she instinctively pulled the boy behind her. But Rex wasn't targeting her the way she assumed. The dog skidded to a halt just inches from the child, planting himself between the boy and the nearest group of travelers, his body forming a protective shield. His stance was firm, unyielding, and filled with urgency. The boy didn't flinch. Instead, his eyes widened with relief, a flicker of hope finally breaking through the fear that had been quietly consuming him. But the woman, her reaction was nothing short of strange. Her face drained of color. Her grip tightened. She stepped back as if the dog had exposed something she had tried desperately to hide. Officers nearby rushed forward, hands hovering near their belts, unsure if Rex had detected a threat, a weapon, or something far more unpredictable. Passengers whispered frantically. Security cameras pivoted. The entire terminal felt like it had been suspended in midair. Rex growled, not at the boy, at the woman. A deep, protective warning that shook everyone around them. Everything had officially changed. The woman's reaction was immediate, too immediate. Instead of shock or confusion, her face twisted with something sharper, something far less innocent. Her grip on the boy's hand tightened so suddenly that he winced, his small fingers bending under the pressure. She tried to yank him backward, away from Rex, away from the officers rushing toward them. But Rex took one step closer, body low, jaw tight, growling with a warning that vibrated through the floor. "Ma'am, step away from the child." One officer shouted as he approached. I don't know what's wrong with your dog." She stammered, but her voice carried a tremor that didn't match her words. She wasn't panicking like a worried mother. She was panicking like someone who'd been caught. Mark finally reached them, breath tight, heart pounding. He positioned himself beside Rex, one hand resting on the dog's back, feeling the muscles rippling beneath the fur. "Rex doesn't act like this without a reason," Mark said firmly. "Let go of the boy," the woman hesitated. "Just for a second." But it was enough. Her eyes darted around the terminal toward exits, cameras, uniformed officers closing in. Her jaw clenched and her pupils shrank with a flash of something Mark recognized instantly. Fear. Not fear for the child. Fear for herself. "I'm his mother," she snapped suddenly, trying to find confidence in her tone. "You have no right to question me." Rex growled louder. The boy flinched, his free hand trembling at his side, eyes flickering to Mark with desperate urgency. Mark's suspicion sharpened. "If you're his mother, then why is he terrified?" he asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut straight through the noise. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she tried pulling the boy toward the nearest escalator, her steps quick and shaky. But Rex blocked her path immediately, planting himself like a wall of muscle and instinct. The terminal buzzed with whispers. Officers exchanged alarmed glances. And Mark knew something was terribly, dangerously wrong. 2 additional officers moved in quickly, forming a subtle semicircle around the woman and the boy. Their expressions were calm but alert, the kind of composed intensity that signaled deep concern without sparking panic. Mark lifted a hand, signaling them to stay focused but not escalate yet. Rex remained firmly planted between the woman and any escape route, his growl fading into a low, steady rumble that vibrated through his chest like a warning heartbeat. "Ma'am," Officer Daniels said gently, stepping closer, "we just need to verify everything is okay, that's all." His tone was soft, professional, deliberately unthreatening. But the woman reacted as if the words were a threat. She jerked backward, pulling the boy harder, her movements jerky and defensive. The child stumbled, nearly losing his balance. "That's enough," Mark said sharply. He moved in front of her, blocking her path toward the escalator. "You're not going anywhere until we understand what's happening." The woman's breathing grew unsteady. A drop of sweat slid down her temple. "Your dog is dangerous," she snapped, pointing at Rex. "He's attacking us for no reason." "I want to file a complaint." Rex responded with another deep growl, his eyes never leaving her. Mark didn't flinch. "Rex is trained to detect distress, threats, and hidden danger," he said. "If he's reacting, there is a reason." The nearby passengers slowed their steps, curiosity growing like a ripple across the terminal. Some filmed with their phones. Others whispered, sensing a storm gathering beneath the surface of a seemingly ordinary airport morning. The woman swallowed hard, her fingers trembling around the boy's wrist. The officers noticed. "So did Mark, so did Rex. We need you both to come with us for a quick secondary screening," Officer Daniels instructed. The words sounded polite, but the meaning was firm. The woman froze, the boy's eyes widened. Rex stepped forward, muscles tightening, ready for whatever came next. And in that tense moment, Mark knew they had just stepped into something far bigger than a simple misunderstanding. As the officers tightened their formation, the woman's grip on the boy's wrist stiffened even more. The child flinched, a tiny wince crossing his face, but he didn't cry or resist. Instead, he looked up at Mark just for a second. It was a silent, trembling plea, the kind that carried more truth than any shouted words. Mark felt a knot twist inside his chest. Something about the boy's eyes, wide, glossy, trapped, hit him harder than he expected. "Hey, buddy," Mark said gently, lowering himself slightly to the child's eye level. "You okay? You can talk to me if you need help?" Rex stood beside him, tail low, ears forward, sensing the boy's fragile state. The dog wasn't growling, now he was focused, steady, protective. The boy opened his mouth, but nothing came out, not a word. Not even a sound. His lips trembled as if he wanted to speak, wanted to scream, wanted to tell the truth, but something held him back. Fear, heavy and suffocating, clung to him like a shadow. He swallowed shakily, lowering his eyes again, and Mark noticed a slight quiver in his chin. The woman tightened her grip at that exact moment, sending a clear, silent message. "Stay silent." Rex barked sharply, startling the surrounding passengers. It wasn't aggression, it was frustration, urgency. He nudged the boy gently with his nose, as if encouraging him to speak, encouraging him to say anything at all. The child finally lifted his gaze again, this time staring directly at Rex. His fingers twitched, not in the secret signal he gave earlier, but in a desperate tremor. Mark recognized the look. This wasn't a child who didn't want to speak. This was a child who couldn't. "Ma'am," Officer Daniels said firmly, "let go of his hand." "I said he's fine," she snapped, her voice cracking with panic. But her words no longer convinced anyone, not Mark, not Rex, and certainly not the boy. Because sometimes silence isn't a choice. Sometimes it's a warning. The officers guided the woman and the boy toward the secondary screening room, a quiet space tucked behind frosted glass and thick walls meant to keep chaos out and truth in. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead as the door closed behind them, sealing the tension inside. The woman crossed her arms tightly, her jaw clenched, her eyes darting between the officers like a cornered animal searching for an escape. The boy stood beside her, silent, shoulders drooping, his tiny chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. Mark entered with Rex at his side. The dog immediately began pacing the perimeter of the room, sniffing, analyzing, sensing the undercurrent of fear swirling in the air. His nails clicked methodically against the tiles, each step measured and precise, his instincts guiding him more than training ever could. "Ma'am, we need to verify identification and confirm your relationship with the child," Officer Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. The woman stiffened. "I already told you he's my son," she snapped, but her tone lacked conviction. Her hands trembled as she reached for her bag. "Please step away from the boy," Mark instructed, her eyes narrowed. "Why, you think I'm dangerous?" Rex growled softly, the sound low but powerful enough to slice through her defiance. Mark didn't need to answer Rex. Already had another officer gently guided the boy to a small chair on the opposite side of the room. The child moved slowly, glancing back at the woman with a mixture of fear and pleading, as though afraid she might erupt at any second. Mark crouched in front of him. "You're safe here, okay? No one's going to hurt you." But the boy's lips remained sealed, his fingers gripping the edge of the chair until his knuckles turned white. Behind them, Rex suddenly stopped pacing. His head snapped toward the woman, body stiffening with alert. Mark felt his pulse spike. The dog had sensed something. Again, the walls felt tighter now. The silence heavier. Whatever truth was hiding in that room had just shifted closer to the surface. Mark stayed crouched in front of the boy, keeping his voice gentle but steady. "You don't have to be scared," he said softly. "You're safe now. Rex is here. He won't let anything happen to you." At the sound of his name, Rex stepped closer, sitting beside the child with quiet confidence. The dog's presence filled the room like a protective shield, warm and unbreakable. The boy's eyes flickered toward Rex, the tiniest spark of comfort breaking through his fear. For a moment, the silence stretched. The boy squeezed his hands together, his fingers trembling. He tried to speak again. Mark could see it in the way his lips parted, the breath he tried to take. But the words caught in his throat, strangled by something heavier than fear alone. His shoulders shook once, barely noticeable. "It's okay. Take your time," Mark encouraged. Then it happened, so small, so fragile, yet so powerful. The boy lifted his hand, shakily, uncertainly. His fingers gently brushed the collar of his shirt, and as his sleeve shifted, Mark's eyes caught it, a faint mark. A shadow of bruising along the wrist the woman had been gripping so tightly. Mark's stomach tightened. That wasn't there earlier, he whispered under his breath. The boy noticed Mark had seen it. Slowly, hesitantly, he turned his wrist outward, exposing more of the bruise, a silent confession, trembling but deliberate. His eyes filled with tears he didn't dare let fall. Across the room, the woman stiffened. Her reaction was instant, too fast. Too defensive. That's from yesterday, she snapped. He fell. Kids fall all the time. But her voice cracked. And Rex growled again, deeper this time, the kind of growl that pierced through lies like a blade. The boy looked up at Mark with a quivering inhale. And in a whisper so faint Mark barely heard it, the child finally forced out a single, fragile word. Help. Asterisk, the single whispered word help hit Mark harder than any shout ever could. It was raw, fragile, and filled with a terror no child should ever carry. Mark's breath caught for a moment, but before he could speak, Rex moved. The German. Shepard rose abruptly, his posture shifting from protective to intensely alert. His nose lifted, sniffing the air around the boy, then turning sharply toward the woman with a growl that rumbled deep in his chest. Rex stepped between them again, this time more aggressively. His hackles lifted, his stance widening, ready to react if the woman dared move closer. Mark had never seen Rex so focused, so certain. It wasn't just fear he was sensing. Rex had detected something more precise, more urgent. Something that didn't come from the boy. But from the woman, Officer Daniels noticed too. Mark, you seeing this? Mark nodded slowly. He's not reacting to the boy anymore. He's reacting to her. The woman's breathing quickened. She took a step backward, her back brushing the wall. Her eyes were wild now, frantic, scanning for a way out. This is ridiculous. You're letting a dog decide what's happening. Rex barked sharply, the sound echoing off the narrow walls. It wasn't random. It was a warning. A demand for truth. Mark watched the woman closely. Why is he reacting to you, ma'am? Are you carrying something you shouldn't be? Weapons? Substances? I said I'm not, she shouted. But it wasn't anger, it was fear bleeding through every syllable. Rex took a slow step forward, nose pointed directly at the woman's coat. He sniffed once, twice, then barked again, louder, more urgent. Mark recognized that Signal Rex had detected elevated adrenaline, the scent of hidden panic, and something else dogs were trained to identify, the scent of someone lying under stress. The boy flinched at the bark, then whispered again, barely audible, "Don't let her take me." That was all Mark needed to hear. And clearly, it was all Rex needed too, because in that moment, the truth wasn't just close, it was already unraveling. Rex's bark echoed through the small security room, each sharp sound ricocheting off the walls like a warning siren. The woman flinched, pressing herself tighter against the wall, her hands trembling violently now. Mark stepped forward, eyes narrowing, instincts sharpening with every passing second. The boy's whispered plea still lingered in the air, fragile but powerful enough to tilt the entire situation on its axis. Something was about to break open and Rex could feel it before anyone else. Officer Daniels approached cautiously. "Ma'am, open your coat?" Her head jerked up. "No, why?" "I told you, open the coat." His voice hardened. It wasn't a request. Her jaw trembled, and for a moment she looked ready to run, to fight, to grab the boy and make one desperate, reckless attempt to escape. But Rex snarled, stepping forward with such force that she froze in place. Slowly, she unbuttoned the coat. As the fabric parted, the first detail emerged, almost invisible, yet horrifying in its meaning. A metallic wrist restraint. On her wrist. The same type used to bind children during abductions. The color drained from Mark's face. "That isn't for you," he said quietly. "Who were you planning to use it on?" The woman's mouth opened, but no words came out. Officer Daniels moved to check her bag. She tried to stop him, too late. He rummaged inside and pulled out a small plastic ID card. A forged child travel document. The photo wasn't her. The signature was wrong. The date was falsified, and worst of all, the name printed on it wasn't hers. It was the boy's. The room fell silent. The truth crashed over them like a wave. Mark turned to the child. "Is she your mother?" he asked softly. The boy shook his head, slow at first, then faster, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes. His voice, barely audible, cracked as he whispered, "She took me. She took me from my real mom." The woman lunged suddenly, desperation twisting her face, but Rex launched forward, stopping her cold with a furious growl that rattled the walls. The truth was out. And now, nothing could undo it. The room exploded into movement the instant Rex lunged forward. The woman stumbled back, eyes wide with panic, her breathing frantic and uneven. She wasn't thinking clearly anymore. Every ounce of control she once pretended to have evaporated the moment her secret was exposed. Officer Daniels stepped toward her, but she darted to the side with surprising speed, knocking a chair over as she shoved her way toward the door. "Stop!" Mark shouted, reaching out, but she twisted away. Her fingers scraped against the door handle, fumbling desperately for a grip. For a moment, she actually managed to yank it open. The hallway lights spilled in, revealing a path crowded with passengers and officers. If she made it through that door, chaos would erupt through the terminal, but Rex was faster. The German Shepherd tore across the room, muscles coiled with purpose, claws striking the tile in rapid succession. The woman barely managed 2 steps into the hall before Rex leaped, cutting her off with a powerful bark that froze several people in their tracks. She screamed and swung her elbow wildly, trying to hit him, but Rex pivoted, dodging her blows with practiced precision. He didn't need to bite, he just needed to block, intimidate, control. And he did it flawlessly. Officers rushed after them. Mark grabbed the woman's arm just as she tried to push past Rex again. She thrashed violently, her hair whipping across her face, her voice cracking with raw desperation. "Let me go?" "I didn't do anything." "You don't understand." "Oh, we understand," Mark said through clenched teeth. "You're not taking him anywhere." The woman tried to jerk free one last time, but Rex stepped in close, growling low and deep. The sound alone shattered the last of her resistance. Her legs buckled beneath her and she collapsed to her knees, sobbing, a haunting, broken sound echoing in the hallway. Mark quickly signaled to restrain her. And as the handcuffs clicked shut, every person watching realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was an abduction stopped in its final minutes. The hallway erupted with startled gasps as Rex positioned himself in front of the woman, blocking every escape route she tried to take. Even on her knees, she attempted a desperate lunge to the side, twisting like a trapped animal. But Rex moved with lightning precision, his body anchored low, ready to counter any sudden motion. His growl reverberated through the corridor, a deep, unwavering sound that stopped nearby passengers in their tracks. His eyes burned with instinct. Protect the child at all costs. Mark and Officer Daniels tightened their hold on the woman's arms, but she still fought with surprising ferocity. Her voice cracked into a scream. "You don't understand. I had to take him." Her words echoed sharply, drawing more officers from nearby checkpoints. The crowd grew, whispers rippling through the terminal like a spreading wave. Rex barked again. A single sharp warning that made her flinch so violently she nearly collapsed again. Mark gave Rex a quick gesture to hold position. The dog froze instantly, muscles still coiled like springs beneath his fur. He had not misread a single moment of this encounter. Another officer hurried forward with restraints, and together they finally secured her hands behind her back. Mark exhaled a heavy, controlled breath before pulling the woman to her feet. She no longer fought. She stared at Rex with a mixture of fear and hatred, her composure shattered. "You were never supposed to intervene," she hissed under her breath, shaking with adrenaline. Mark's jaw clenched. Rex intervenes when a child is in danger. And he was right. As she was escorted down the hall, the boy remained seated inside the security room, knees pulled close to his chest. His small frame trembled, not from fear of Rex, but from the memory of where he might have been taken if the dog hadn't acted. Rex slowly approached the doorway, pausing to lock eyes with the child. The boy's lips parted in a shaky exhale, relief washing over him. For the first time since the chaos began, he looked safe. And it was entirely because Rex had refused to stay still when everything depended on him moving. The security room felt quieter now, though the tension still lingered in the charged air. The woman's screams had faded down the hallway, replaced by the muffled sounds of officers escorting her away. Mark stepped back into the room, his gaze softening the moment he saw the boy curled in the chair, small shoulders trembling beneath the weight of everything he had endured. Rex sat beside him, tail still, posture calm, offering a silent comfort only a child in fear could truly understand. Mark knelt down again. "You're safe now," he said gently. "She can't hurt you anymore. You don't have to be afraid." For the first time, the boy lifted his head completely. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, his cheeks flushed with the kind of fear that takes hours, sometimes days, to fade. Rex inched closer, nudging the boy's knee with his nose. The child reached out tentatively, fingers brushing Rex's fur like he was touching something fragile and alive for the first time in days. She took me," he whispered, voice cracking. "I told her I wanted to go home. I told her I wanted my mom, but she said if I talked, she'd—" His words broke off, swallowed by the tremble in his throat. Mark nodded slowly, encouraging him to continue at his own pace. "You're doing good. Whatever you tell us helps us get you back to your real family." The boy squeezed Rex's fur a little tighter. "I saw you," he said softly. "When we walked in? I saw the dog. I thought, maybe he could help me. So I did the sign my mom taught me. The one for danger." Mark's heart tightened. That tiny signal, the one almost no adult noticed, had changed everything. "You were very brave," Mark told him. "Rex saw you." He understood. The boy nodded, relief softening his expression for the first time. He looked at Rex again. "He saved me." And in that moment, the truth that had been trapped inside him finally found its voice, a voice that Rex had heard long before anyone else. News traveled through the airport faster than luggage on a conveyor belt. Within minutes, officers and staff gathered near the security room, whispering in disbelief about what had almost happened and what had been prevented just in time. The danger had passed, but the emotional weight still clung to the air like static. The boy remained close to Rex, sitting on the floor now, small fingers knotted gently in the dog's thick fur. Every so often, Rex leaned his head against the child's shoulder, grounding him with steady warmth. A female officer entered with a soft smile. "We contacted his family," she said quietly. "They're on their way. They've been searching everywhere for him." The boy exhaled shakily, relief breaking across his face like sunrise. His eyes filled, not with fear this time, but with something softer, safer. Rex nudged him again, sensing the shift. Minutes later, the doors burst open. A woman, breathless, frantic, eyes swollen from hours of terror, ran inside. The boy shot upright. "Mom!" She fell to her knees, pulling him into her arms with a sob so raw that even the officers stepped back, giving them space. The boy clung to her, burying his face into her shoulder. His small body shook not from fear anymore, but from the overwhelming relief of being home again. When she finally looked up, her tear-filled eyes landed on Rex. She reached out with a trembling hand and gently touched the dog's head. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking. "You saved my baby." Rex closed his eyes softly, leaning into her touch. Mark stood nearby, pride swelling in his chest. "He saw what none of us could," he said. "Your son gave a signal." Rex understood it. The mother hugged her son tighter. "You're my hero," she whispered, though she wasn't talking only to the boy. As the reunited family left the room, Rex stood tall, tail wagging gently, watching them disappear down the hallway. A dangerous abduction had been stopped. A child had been saved, and all because one little boy lifted his hand, and one police dog listened.